So I'm Bindu Panikkar. I am of South Asian descent, moved to the US in early 2000s to go to graduate school, went to Tufts University to get my degree. I was fortunate enough to complete my studies and get a PhD in environmental health that actually very much focused on environmental justice issues. So I got a lot of training while working on my PhD because my research actually looked into immigrant occupational health issues. So this work started as a result of a very tragic accident in Somerville, Massachusetts, where two Vietnamese floor sanders died while they were at work, mostly from the use of these very volatile floor sanding compounds. That initial work actually led to the banning of, those compounds, but the work actually emerged from all of the things that actually happened at that time and in collaboration with the communities like, the Immigrant Services Providers Group, the Somerville Action Agency, Community Action Agency of Somerville, CAS, Haitian Coalition, Brazilian Women's Group, and so on. So when I came here, I was feeling a little bit lost because environmental justice issue was not really talked about that much. And there is this perception that Vermont is a very clean state, environmentally progressive, and so on. And no one was really willing to, talk about, all the harms related to the farming industry in Vermont. I knew that it comes from lack of focus and conversations about environmental justice issues in Vermont. I found that it was not easy to address issues facing communities of color and low-income communities. But I was also fortunate that at that same time, the DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation in Vermont, was asked to build an environmental justice component as part of their working agreement with the Environmental Protection Agency. And so a group of people were invited to actually seek some help on, building that component. With the work that started as a result, ended up in kind of one of the initial, the group of people who were involved in the founding of rural environmental justice opportunities informed by community expertise, or most commonly known as Rejoice Partnership, which is a coalition of community groups, but also university group and policy people, mostly UVM, but also Vermont Law School is also part of it. Community Center for Whole Communities and Community Action Works is also some of the key members of this coalition. The state, many of the community groups were also not clear on what the environmental justice issues were. And one of the things that we insisted on in our initial meetings is that the state do not adopt just a policy from another state and plug it in here, but they make an effort to learn from the ground up what are the environmental justice concerns within the state. And so, as part of that work, I've led the research core of the Rejoice team. And we ended up, doing a range of different things. One is a spatial analysis, and we also did interviews and surveys across communities. And when we say surveys, it's not just kind of blasting a survey on like, through virtually. We actually visited, the most underserved communities across Vermont and door knocked and talked to people face to face. So we've put in that effort to put together the work that we have done, some of which is actually featured on the Rejoice website. And all of this with the intention and goal of informing environmental justice policy for the state, which was introduced towards the end of 2021. A lot of the language was co-produced in some sense, where we workshop segments of that bill in BIPOC meetings. The key people engaged in drafting the bill has been Vermont Law School, but also Conservation Law Foundation, but also with a lot of input from the community. So, it has some key elements, but a lot of the key elements were also taken out of it. In the bill, initially, we wanted 55% of any environmental funding going to this, the state investing in the community to go towards underserved community. And that was disappointingly taken out. I mean, it makes no sense. How are you supposed to do environmental justice work without actually having a concrete plan on how you're going to help the underserved communities? If you don't put, funding resources towards that, it makes it really difficult to address it, or you're doing just lip service, saying that, we have a EJ policy and we are addressing EJ issues in Vermont. I also heard that, we are pretty much waiting to hear if the governor would sign the bill into law or not. So even the bare bone bill of environmental justice, might not get signed into law because there isn't enough funding provided even to do that barest minimum work that's proposed. And I feel like, there needs to be sufficient funding being allotted towards community engagement. And that should be one of the strengths of the bill that Vermont passes. We're not sure that it'll be signed into law. There are rumors that it might be vetoed. So we're not sure, but let's hope that at least they will pass it, because otherwise it is kind of infuriating that EJ is not a priority to the state and the governor. But at the same time, would not be surprised if it gets turned down. Our environment is in peril, and that affects not just the environment, but also, some people more than others. It's how can we think about it in a holistic way, because it's, we are all connected, cannot separate one from the other. So you cannot just think about the trees. But environmental justice do have, it's not just about environmental harms. It's also about environmental benefits. Who has access to environmental benefits as well? It is also an access issue, and who gets what and who doesn't. And we understand environment in a very limited way as well. So within the environmental justice field and movement, what is an environment is anything surrounding you. The minute you're breathing in, you're taking the environment within you I think what keeps me going is just simple. We care about, people. We care about, the people who are really suffering. It's that compassionate side of ourselves. And some of us have actually been as a person of color. I understand the struggles that people go through. I am one of the fortunate person of color. I have a PhD. I have a job that pays me, livable salary, one that I can live comfortably in. Many of my brothers and sisters do not have that. And how can you not be concerned about that? How can you not have compassion and wanting much more just and kinder and compassionate world to live in? So my motive stems from, a very simple motivations and concerns. I've always been concerned about these issues from when I was little. Who gets what and who doesn't get what and why. And always been a very introverted and kind of a very quiet and observant and more thoughtful person. It is heartbreaking. The rich gets richer and the poor gets sicker and sicker and poorer. There is enough for everyone. We don't have to be living in a very unjust way where competition and greed and cruelty can be openly practiced while taking care of each other and being compassionate and kind is not something that you encourage. I don't understand that.